The stars had always seemed peaceful to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and dreamed of what might be out there. When they finally made contact with the Galactic Confederacy 3 years ago, those dreams turned into reality. But reality, as Admiral Tahoe now understood, was far more cruel than any dream. He stood on the observation deck of the defense station orbiting Earth. Watching the Velen fleet approach, there were hundreds of ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. The Velen Empire had conquered dozens of worlds across the galaxy. They were ancient, powerful, and utterly without mercy. "Admiral," said a young officer behind him, "the Velen commander is demanding to speak with you." Tahoe turned slowly. His face showed no fear, though his heart was beating fast. "Put him through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like a nightmare-given form. The Velen had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that glowed with a sickly yellow light. This was Warlord Vesic, commander of the Velen Frontier Forces. "Human," Vesic said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Your United Council has refused our generous offer. This is your final chance. Surrender your solar system's resources, or face the consequences." Tahoe kept his voice steady. "Earth does not surrender to threats. We are a free people, and we will remain free." Vesic laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You have 12 ships. We have 12,000. You are children playing at war." He leaned closer to the camera. "Very well. You have chosen death." The transmission ended. Tahoe immediately activated his communication device. "All ships prepare for defensive action." This is not a drill. But deep down, he knew it would not matter. Humanity's 12 ships against the Velen Armada was like throwing pebbles at a mountain. The galaxy had classified Earth as a Level 2 civilization primitive, weak, barely worth noticing. And perhaps they were right. The attack came without warning. The Velen ships did not engage the human fleet. They simply flew past it, ignoring the desperate weapons fire from Earth's defenders. Their target was not the military. Their target was the planet itself. In Seoul, it was early morning. People were going to work, children were walking to school, and life was moving forward, as it always did. Dr. Yuna was in her laboratory at the Global Defense Research Initiative, reviewing data from her latest project. She was brilliant, one of the smartest scientists on Earth, and she had been working on technologies that most people thought were impossible. The first blast hit the city center. The explosion was so bright that Yuna was blinded for a moment. Even though her lab was underground, the building shook violently. Alarms screamed. She grabbed the edge of her desk and held on as the world seemed to collapse around her. When the shaking stopped, she ran to the surface. What she saw would haunt her for the rest of her life. Seoul was burning. The beautiful city that had stood for centuries was now a sea of fire and destruction. Buildings had been reduced to rubble. The streets were filled with smoke and screaming, and in the sky above, she could see the Velen ships, hovering like dark gods of death, preparing to fire again. The same scene was playing out in Snow Paulo and Cairo, 3 cities, chosen seemingly at random to teach humanity a lesson about defiance. The Velen did not need to destroy Earth completely. They just needed to show what they could do. 17 million people died in 6 hours. When the attack finally stopped, the galaxy sent its condolences. The Galactic Confederacy held an emergency session. Species from across the stars expressed their sympathy for humanity's loss. But when Ambassador Siokade begged them to intervene, to punish the Velen for this atrocity, they refused. "Humanity is not a member of the Confederacy," said the High Speaker, a being made of crystalline light. "We cannot risk war with the Velen Empire over a Level 2 civilization. It is ... regrettable. But it is not our concern." Siok stood in the center of the great chamber, surrounded by representatives of 100 different species. Some looked at him with pity. Others looked at him with contempt. None of them looked at him with respect. He was a small man, quiet by nature, trained in the art of diplomacy. He had spent his entire career believing that words could solve any problem, that understanding and cooperation were the keys to peace. But as he looked around that chamber, something changed inside him. Something hard and cold took root in his heart. I understand, Siok said softly. Then he straightened his back and spoke in a voice that carried to every corner of the room. You will remember this day. All of you. You will remember that when humanity needed help, you turned away. And you will remember what happened next. He walked out of the chamber without looking back. On Earth, the survivors were pulling bodies from the rubble. Hospitals were overflowing. The world was in shock, struggling to understand how everything had changed so quickly. But even in the midst of grief, something else was happening. Something that the Velen had not expected. Humanity was not falling apart. Humanity was coming together. Admiral Tejo called a meeting of every military leader on Earth. They gathered in a bunker deep beneath the mountains, their faces grim but determined. Dr. Yuna was there too. Her eyes red from crying, but her mind already working on solutions. We cannot defeat them with what we have, Tejo said. That much is obvious. But I refuse to accept that we are helpless. Dr. Yuna, what can you give us? Yuna stepped forward. Her voice was hoarse, but steady. I have been working on projects that were never meant to be used. Weapons and technologies that we considered too dangerous, too extreme. But if we are willing to cross certain lines, she paused. I can give you a chance. The room was silent. Everyone knew what she was saying. The old rules no longer applied. The old limits no longer mattered. Do it, Tejo said. Whatever it takes. Far across the galaxy, the Velen Emperor sat on his throne and laughed when he heard that Earth had declared war. His advisors laughed with him. It was the funniest thing they had heard in years. They have 12 ships, the Emperor said, wiping tears of amusement from his eyes. We have 12,000. This will not be a war. It will be an execution. He gave orders to prepare a full invasion fleet. He wanted to make an example of Earth, to show the galaxy what happened to species that defied the Velen Empire. He expected the whole thing to be over in a few weeks. He had no idea what was coming. 6 months passed after the bombing, and the galaxy waited for humanity to die. The Velen Empire expected surrender within weeks. When it did not come, they expected collapse. Civil war, perhaps, or mass starvation. That was what happened to primitive species when they faced real power. They broke apart from the inside, too weak and divided to survive. But something strange was happening. Earth had gone completely silent. All communications with the outside galaxy had stopped. No trade ships left the solar system. No messages were sent. No refugees fled to other worlds begging for help. It was as if humanity had simply vanished. The Velen sent scouts to investigate. They found human stations abandoned, human ships floating empty in space. No bodies, no messages, no explanations. Just silence. They are hiding, Warlord, Disek reported to his Emperor. Like animals crawling into holes to die. We should send the invasion fleet now and finish them. But the Emperor was in no hurry. Let them suffer, he said. Let them starve in the dark. When we finally come for them, they will be too weak to even beg for mercy. He was wrong. So very wrong. Deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, humanity was not dying. Humanity was transforming. Captain Hannah stood on the bridge of her ship, the stealth carrier Revenant, watching the construction crews work. Around her, hidden among the rocks and ice of the asteroid belt, dozens of shipyards were operating at full capacity. Day and night, workers built new ships, new weapons, new machines of war. She was young for a captain, only 32 years old. She had dark hair cut short for practical reasons, and eyes that seemed to see everything. Before the bombing, she had been considered talented but unremarkable. Now she commanded the most important reconnaissance mission in human history. Report, she said to her second-in-command. Lieutenant Jin Da-Jin was a tall man with a scar on his face from a piece of falling debris. He had been in Seoul when the bombs fell. He had watched his wife and daughter die in front of him, crushed by their own home. Some people would have been destroyed by such pain. Jin had been forged by it. We have completed mapping of the Velen frontier defenses, he said. Their supply lines are spread thin. They never expected to need heavy defenses so close to their core territory. Hannah nodded. Good. What about their homeworld? We have the coordinates. But Captain, Jin hesitated. Getting close enough to confirm will be extremely dangerous, and we will be extremely careful. Hannah turned to face him fully. We only get one chance at this, Jin. When we strike, it has to be perfect. No mistakes, no warnings. They need to wake up one morning and discover that the galaxy has changed. Jin's eyes were cold and hard. I look forward to that morning. On Earth, Dr. Yuna was not sleeping. She had not truly slept in 6 months. There was too much work to do, too many problems to solve, and every hour of delay meant more time for the Velen to prepare. Her team had captured fragments of alien technology from the initial attack pieces of Velen weapons, shields, and engines. The Galactic Confederacy had spent decades studying such technology when they first encountered it. Yuna's team did it in months. It is not that we are smarter, she explained to General Wu, head of Operation Black Tide. It is that we are desperate. Desperation focuses the mind in ways that comfort never can. Wu was an old soldier, gray-haired and weathered by decades of service. He had fought in the last wars on Earth, the ones that nearly destroyed humanity before they learned to live in peace. Now, he was fighting again, against an enemy that made those old conflicts seem like children's games. Show me, he said. Yuna led him through the underground facility, past laboratories filled with scientists working frantically, past factories producing weapons that had never existed before. She stopped in front of a massive screen showing a simulation. This is the kinetic accelerator, she said. It can launch projectiles at 30% of the speed of light. No shield in the galaxy can stop something moving that fast. She changed the display. These are the swarm drones, thousands of small attack units that can overwhelm any point defense system. And this, she paused, her face grim. This is the EMP warhead. It will disable any ship's systems for approximately 3 minutes. 3 minutes does not sound like much, Wu said. 3 minutes is forever in a space battle. 3 minutes is enough time to kill a ship 10 times over. Wu studied the displays for a long moment. How soon can we be ready? 5 more months. Maybe 4 if we push harder. Push harder. Across the solar system, humanity worked. Factories that once made cars now made missiles. Universities that once studied philosophy now studied war. Every resource, every mind, every hand was turned toward a single purpose. The people of Earth were not fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting for survival. And more than that, they were fighting for revenge. In the silence of space, the quiet fleet grew. Ship after ship, weapon after weapon, all hidden from the eyes of the galaxy. The Velen thought they were watching a species collapse. They did not understand that they were watching a species transform. A Velen scout ship finally found something. It was an abandoned human station on the edge of the solar system, one of the old research outposts from before first contact. The scouts searched it carefully, looking for any information about what humanity was planning. They found empty rooms, broken equipment, and the smell of dust and decay. It seemed like just another sign of humanity's fall. But in the main control room, carved into the metal wall with something sharp, they found a message. 3 words. Simple words. Words that the Velen translator struggled to understand because the meaning seemed so impossible. We are coming. Scout commander stared at the message for a long time. Then he sent a report to his superiors, warning them that something was wrong, that humanity might not be as broken as they believed. His report was ignored. The Velen were too confident, too certain of their own power. They had destroyed dozens of species before. Why would these humans be any different? In the asteroid belt, Captain Hannah received word that the scout had found the message. She smiled, a small and dangerous expression. Good, she said. Let them wonder. Let them worry. And then let them learn what happens when you hurt humanity. The galaxy continued to turn. The stars continued to shine. And in the darkness between worlds, humanity prepared for war. The silence would not last forever. 11 months after the bombing, the Velen Empire was at peace. Their frontier was quiet, their enemies were silent, and their soldiers were growing bored. Many had started to believe that the war with humanity was already over. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Commander Minji checked her weapons one final time. She was the leader of Ghost Squadron, humanity's most elite strike force. Her pilots had trained for this moment every day for the past 6 months. They had practiced until every maneuver was perfect, until every system was understood, until failure was simply not possible. All units. Report status, she said into her communicator. One by one, her pilots responded. 17 ships, each one carrying the hopes and fury of an entire species. They were deep in Velen territory, far from any help, surrounded by enemies who did not even know they were there. Ghost Leader, this is Command, Admiral Tejo's voice came through the communicator. All attack groups are in position. Operation Black Tide begins in 3 minutes. Understood, Command? We are ready. Minji looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 17 Velen military installations were about to experience the worst moment of their existence. The attacks would happen simultaneously, a coordinated strike across hundreds of light years of space. The Velen would have no time to warn each other, no time to prepare, no time to understand what was happening. 2 minutes, Tejo said. Minji thought about her home. She had grown up in a small town outside Busan, in a house near the ocean. Her parents had been fishermen, simple people who wanted simple things. They were still alive, her town had not been hit in the bombing. But so many others had not been so lucky. 17 million dead. That number burned in her mind like fire. 1 minute. She took a deep breath. Her hands were steady on the controls. Her heart was cold and hard. All units activate weapons. Targets confirmed. Remember what they did to us? Remember why we are here? 30 seconds. Across Velen space, human ships emerged from hiding. They had been waiting for weeks, silent and invisible, powered down to avoid detection. Now they came alive all at once, like ghosts rising from the grave. Execute. The first missiles launched from Ghost Squadron hit the Velen station called Victory Point. It was their largest. Frontier base. Home to 300 warships and 50,000 soldiers, the station's shields flickered and died as the EMP warheads did their terrible work. For 3 precious minutes, the Velen were blind and helpless. Ghost Squadron did not waste a single second. Minji's ship dove toward the enemy fleet, spinning and weaving through defensive fire that came too late and aimed too poorly. Her pilots followed in perfect formation, their small ships dancing through the chaos like deadly butterflies. Swarm drones deployed, reported one of her pilots. Thousands of tiny weapons scattered through space, each one seeking a target, each one carrying enough explosives to cripple a ship. The Velen tried to respond. Their warriors were brave, and their ships were powerful, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Human ships moved in ways that seemed impossible, pulling turns that would crush any other species under the force of acceleration. But humans were different. Humans had evolved on a high-gravity world. Their bodies were dense, their bones were strong, and their hearts could pump blood even when the pressure should have killed them. What would black out a Velen pilot was merely uncomfortable for a human. Enemy flagship attempting to flee, Jin reported from the Revenant, watching the battle from a safe distance. Should we pursue? No, Admiral Tejo commanded. Let one escape from each attack. We want survivors. We want witnesses. He wanted the Velen to know what had happened. He wanted them to understand, across the frontier, the same scene played out again and again. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Velen stations burned. Velen fleets scattered. Velen soldiers died by the thousands. Warlord. Desik was commanding from his personal dreadnought when the attack came to his sector. He had been eating his morning meal, confident that the war was essentially over. Then the alarm started screaming. What is happening? He demanded. We are under attack. His officer shouted. Human ships, hundreds of them, they came out of nowhere. Impossible. The humans have no fleet. But the evidence was burning right outside his window. Desic watched in horror as 3 of his battleships exploded in rapid succession, their shields useless against weapons that moved faster than light should allow. He grabbed his communicator. "This is Warlord Desic, to all commands. We are under coordinated attack. Request immediate reinforcement." But the responses that came back were not reinforcements. They were cries for help from every sector of the frontier. Everyone was under attack. Everyone was dying. Desic did the only thing he could. He sent a message to the Emperor, a desperate warning that everything they believed about humanity was wrong. "They are not fighting like a level 2 civilization," he said, his voice shaking. "They are not fighting like anything we have ever seen. We need the transmission cut off as a kinetic slug traveling at 30% of light speed." Punched through his dreadnought's bridge. The battle lasted 72 hours. When it was over, the Velen had lost 2,000 ships. Humanity had lost 30-4. Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Wrath of Sol. It was a new ship built in secret over the past 11 months, designed for one purpose: to carry humanity's vengeance to the stars. "Open a channel," he said. "Broadcast to all frequencies, all languages. I want the entire galaxy to hear this." His communications officer nodded and made the connection. Tejo looked into the camera. His face was calm, but his eyes held a fire that could not be hidden. "This message is for the Velen Empire and for the Galacti. See Confederacy. 11 months ago, you attacked Earth. You killed 17 million of our people's civilians. Children, innocents, who had done nothing wrong. You thought this would break us. You thought this would teach us to submit." He paused, letting his words sink in across the stars. "You were wrong. 17 million of our people are dead. We will have 17 million of yours, and then and only then will we discuss terms." He ended the transmission. Across the galaxy, species watched in shock. The Galactic Confederacy called an emergency session. News spread from world to world. The humans had struck back. The humans had won. The humans were coming. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the Velen Empire knew fear. 18 months after the bombing of Earth, the Velen Empire was dying. Human fleets pushed deeper into enemy territory each day. Colony after colony fell. Military bases burned. The once mighty Velen war machine was crumbling like sand before a Wolslan wave. But the way humans fought confused the galaxy more than their victories. Did Sergeant Day lead his ground forces onto the surface of a Velen? Colony world called Makin. It was a mining planet. Home to 2 million Velen civilians and a small military garrison. His orders were clear: destroy the garrison, secure the mining facilities, prepare for the next advance. The garrison fell quickly. Human soldiers were terrifying in ground combats, stronger than Velen warriors, faster and able to fight for hours without rest. Within a day, every Velen soldier on the planet was dead or captured. But then, something unexpected happened. Day assembled his troops in the main city square. Around them, Velen civilians watched with terror in their eyes. They expected what always happened when conquering armies arrived: looting, murder, slavery. That was how war worked. That was how it had always worked. "Listen to me," Day announced through a translator. "We are not here to hurt you. We are not here to enslave you. We are here because your empire attacked our home and killed millions of innocent people." The civilians stared at him, unable to understand. "You have 2 choices," Day continued. "You can evacuate to another Velen world. We will provide transport ships and supplies for the journey. Or you can stay here, under human protection. No one will harm you. No one will take your property. You will live as you lived before, under new management." One of the civilians, an old female with gray skin and tired eyes, stepped forward. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you show mercy? We are your enemies." Day looked at her for a long moment. "Your soldiers are our enemies. Your emperor is our enemy. You are just people trying to live your lives. We do not make war on people." The news spread across the galaxy. On every world humanity conquered, they offered the same choice: no massacres. No slave camps. No revenge against civilians who had nothing to do with the bombing. High Counselor. Nari watched the reports from her command center on Earth. She was the leader of the War Council, the highest authority in humanity's government. The weight of every decision sat heavy on her shoulders. Some people are angry, her advisor told her. They say we should burn every Velen world to ash. They say mercy is weakness. Nari shook her head. Mercy is not weakness. It is strength. Anyone can destroy. Only the strong can choose not to. She turned to face him. We are not fighting to become what the Velen are. We are fighting to make sure no one can ever do to others what they did to us. Dr. Yuna sent a message from her mobile laboratory, the Prometheus. The ship traveled with the main fleet, constantly developing new weapons and technologies to stay ahead of the enemy. The Sunfire Protocol is ready, she reported. Nari felt cold. The Sunfire Protocol was their most terrible weapon, a system of satellites that could focus a star's energy into a concentrated beam. It could destroy an entire planet in hours. It was the ultimate threat, the final argument. Have we needed to use it? Nari asked. Not yet. The threat alone has been enough to force surrender in 3 systems. Good, keep it that way. I want that weapon to remain a threat, not a memory. Captain Hannah and Lieutenant Jin discovered something that changed the nature of the war. They were investigating a hidden military base when they found the prison camps. Thousands of beings from dozens of different species, locked in cages, starving and sick. These were the slaves of the Velen Empire peoples conquered long ago, kept alive only to serve their masters. Hannah walked through the camps, her heart breaking with every step. She saw creatures she could not even name, beings of every shape and color, all bearing the marks of years of suffering. Get them food, she ordered. Medical supplies. Whatever they need. One of the prisoners, a small being with blue skin and large eyes, grabbed her hand. You are human. It asked in broken galactic standard. Yes, we heard. We heard you were coming. We heard you were fighting the Velen. Tears ran down its face. We thought it was a dream. We thought no one would ever come, Hannah said gently. And we are going to get you out of here. The news of the liberated slaves spread faster than any military victory. Species that had quietly feared humanity now saw them in a new light. This was not conquest. This was justice. The Galactic Confederacy found itself in an awkward position. They had refused to help humanity, called them too primitive to matter. Now, humanity was doing what the Confederacy had never managed to do, breaking the power of the Velen Empire and freeing its victims. Several smaller species began secretly sending supplies and intelligence to the human fleet. They did not announce their support publicly, afraid of what the Velen might do in retaliation. But behind closed doors, they cheered for every human victory. Emperor Korax watched his empire crumble and felt something he had never felt before. Despair. He had ruled for 200 years. He had conquered planets, destroyed civilizations, built an empire that spanned a quarter of the galaxy. He had believed himself invincible. Now human ships were appearing in systems closer and closer to his homeworld. His fleets were scattered and broken. His generals were dead or fleeing. His people whispered that perhaps the Empire had finally met an enemy it could not defeat. In desperation, he sent a message to the Galactic Confederacy, begging them to intervene. This war threatens the stability of the entire galaxy, he pleaded. If humanity is not stopped, they will not stop with us. They will come for all of you. The Confederacy held a vote. The result was overwhelming. No intervention. We did not intervene when you attacked Earth, the High Speaker said coldly. We will not intervene now that Earth attacks you. You made your choice. Live with the consequences. High Counselor Nari addressed the Confederacy shortly after. We did not want this war, she said. We wanted only to live in peace, to explore the stars, to learn from the many wonders this galaxy holds. The Velen chose to take that from us. They chose to murder our children and burn our cities. She paused, her voice growing harder. We will finish this war. And when it is done, the galaxy will understand something important about humanity. We do not forget. and we do not forgive. Hurt us, and we will chase you to the end of the universe. We will tear down everything you have built. We will make you regret ever knowing our name." The Confederacy listened in silence. For the first time, they truly understood what humanity was. Not a level 2 civilization. Not children playing at war. Something older. Something darker. Something that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed them. Humanity was a predator that had learned to wear the mask of civilization. And now that mask was off 2 years after the bombing of Earth, the human fleet arrived at the Velen homeworld. Admiral Tahoe stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Sol and looked at the planet filling his view screen. It was a beautiful world, green and blue, orbited by 3 moons. Billions of Velen lived there, going about their daily lives, trying to pretend that the war was not coming to their doorstep behind him. Stretching across space as far as sensors could detect was the human fleet. 10,000 ships built in just 2 years from almost nothing. It was the largest military force in galactic history, created by a species that had been dismissed as primitive and weak. Admiral Captain Hannah reported from her position at Tactical. "The Velen Defense Fleet is forming up. Approximately 1,500 ships, 1,500 against 10,000. The numbers told the story of how much the war had cost the Velen Empire. "They are hailing us," Lieutenant Jin said. "Let them through." The view screen flickered, and Emperor Corax appeared. He looked old now, older than any images Tahoe had seen of him. The confidence was gone from his eyes. The arrogance had been burned away by 2 years of defeat. "Admiral Tahoe," the Emperor said, "I am prepared to negotiate." "There will be no negotiation," Tahoe replied. "Only terms. Then tell me your terms." Tahoe had waited a long time for this moment. He had imagined it during the dark days after the bombing, when Earth was still burning and hope seemed impossible. He had carried the weight of it through every battle, every victory, every loss. "Unconditional surrender," he said. "Complete demilitarization of your entire empire. War reparations to be paid over the next 100 years to Earth and to every species you have conquered. Release of all slaves and prisoners immediately." Corax's face twisted with rage. "You cannot." "I am not finished. You will build a monument on this world, at the exact center of your capital city. It will list the name of every human who died in your attack on Earth. All 17 million of them. And every year, on the anniversary of the bombing, your people will gather there and remember what they did." The Emperor stared at him in disbelief. "You would humiliate us?" "I would remind you. I would remind your children and your children's children that actions have consequences, that you cannot murder millions of innocent people and expect the universe to forget." Corax was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "We will fight. We would rather die than accept such shame." Tahoe had expected this answer. "Then you will die." He ended the transmission and turned to his crew. "All ships move to encirclement positions. Execute the Ring of Fire." The human fleet spread out around the Velen homeworld like a net closing around prey. Within hours, nothing could enter or leave the planet. The blockade was complete. The Velen defense fleet attacked in waves, desperate to break the ring. They fought bravely, throwing themselves against human positions with everything they had. But bravery was not enough. Training was not enough. Nothing was enough. Captain Hannah commanded the defense of the northern sector. Her ship danced through enemy fire, returning death for death, missile for missile. She had become one of the most famous warriors in human history. The captain who had mapped the path to the Velen homeworld and now guarded the door. "They are trying to concentrate their forces," Jin reported. "A final push at Sector 7. Reinforce it. Let no one through." The final battle lasted 40 minutes. When it was over, the Velen defense fleet no longer existed. Tahoe opened a channel to the planet below. "Emperor Corax, your fleet is destroyed. Your empire has fallen. You have 2 choices. Accept our terms, or watch your people slowly starve as we maintain this blockade until the end of time." The response came hours later. It was not from the Emperor. "This is the Velen High Council. Emperor Corax has been removed from power? We accept your terms. All of them. Ambassador Seok returned to the galactic stage for the first time since he had walked out of the Confederacy chambers. 2 years before, he stood before the representatives of 100 species, the same beings who had refused to help humanity in its darkest hour. But this time, they did not look at him with pity or contempt. They looked at him with fear and respect. "We are here to witness the formal surrender of the Velen Empire," the High Speaker announced, "and to extend an invitation to humanity to join the Galactic Confederacy not as a Level 2 civilization, but as a founding member of the new Security Council." COK considered the offer. Part of him wanted to refuse, to throw their invitation back in their faces and tell them that humanity needed nothing from them. But he was a diplomat, and he understood that revenge was not the same as justice. "We accept," he said. "But understand this. We will never forget how you abandoned us. We will work with you. We will trade with you. We will even protect you if the need arises. But we will never trust you. Trust must be earned, and you have done nothing to earn ours." The chamber was silent. No one argued. On Earth, the war was over. Lieutenant Jin stood before a memorial in the rebuilt city of Seoul. The names of the dead were carved into black stone, stretching higher than any building, a testament to loss that would never be forgotten. Behind him, children played in a park that had been built on the ruins of the old city center. They laughed and shouted, too young to remember the bombing, too young to understand what their parents and grandparents had sacrificed. Jin watched them for a long moment. Then he turned back to the memorial and found the names he was looking for. His wife, his daughter, carved among the millions. "We won," he said quietly. "We made them pay. I hope you can rest now." A reporter approached him asking for a statement. The surrender had just been announced, and the whole world was celebrating. Everyone wanted to hear from the heroes who had made victory possible. Jin thought carefully about what to say. Then he spoke, knowing that his words would be broadcast across the planet and across the galaxy. "They thought we were weak because we were young. They thought we were fragile because we were small. They thought they could break us with fire and terror." He paused, looking up at the names of the dead. "They learned the truth the hard way. Humanity does not break. Humanity does not surrender. And when you hurt us, when you kill our families and burn our homes, we make sure you never hurt anyone again." He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of celebrating people. Above the Earth, human ships orbited in silent formation. They would patrol the stars now, guarding not just their own world, but all the worlds that had been freed from Velen oppression. Humanity had become something new, not conquerors, but protectors, not victims, but avengers. The galaxy would never look at them the same way again. And in the great archive of the Galactic Confederacy, where the histories of all species were recorded, a new entry was added. It told the story of a small species from a small world who had been attacked without warning, who had been left to die by those who should have helped them, and who had risen from the ashes to become one of the most powerful forces in the universe. The entry ended with a warning. Written for any future species that might consider attacking Earth, do not provoke the humans. They remember everything. They forgive nothing. And they will chase you across the stars until justice is served. The stars continued to shine. The galaxy continued to turn. And humanity took its place among them, forever changed, forever watchful. It's forever ready to defend what they loved. This was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning.